Good afternoon, everyone. How is everyone doing today? All right. So you've heard from various panels about things that women are taking advantage of. Women are doing it. This panel is about how we are going to make you more money. Who wants more money? All right. So my name is Faraz Sattar. I'm the founder and managing partner of Accretive Wealth Management. With us, we have an esteemed panel with us, and who better to take us down this panel than none other than our Farah Lotia. Farah is the Vice President of Hedge Trackers. She's been in the financial services industry for a little over 20 years. She has wealth of knowledge on risk, financial risks, product innovation, and transformation of financial products. Next to her, we have another seasoned professional in the financial services industry called Saadia Ahmed. Saadia's been in, she's the co-founder of Kaizen Financial Services Strategies in Camden. And she has a little over 20 years of experience, and she's also a certified financial planner. So any questions with regards to what you need to do with your money, Saadia is the person to ask about that. So with that said, what I want to do first is, why don't we get to know these ladies? Some of you already might know them and have knowledge of them, but I think it's a great idea to understand how did they get started in the financial services industry? So if you don't mind, Farah and Saadia, if you guys can share about a little bit about background about yourself and how did you guys get started in the financial services?
Sure. For me, it wasn't happenstance. It was a very well kind of planned decision in terms of career. I was a nerd and a geek. I was a math kid. And so finance was where my heart was. Started on the investment banking side. I went to IBA in Pakistan and joined a multinational bank, Standard Chartered Bank. This was back in the days when we tested. Anyhow, there was political stuff that was happening. And as a result of that, foreign repatriation was stopped in Pakistan. So that was the first time that I actually entered the world of derivatives, which is what I live and breathe now. And I remember all of barely 23 years old sitting in the state bank office, talking to the state bank chair and trying to explain how you can, without necessarily sending money, send money from Pakistan out and to get it in as well. Moved to the US, started on the investment banking side again. Decided that the geek in me was stronger than the client-facing side, and so decided to, I was one of two people that for US Bank Piper Jaffray started their municipal derivatives desk. And so since then, interest rates and derivatives has been my world. We'll talk, Saadia and I will touch a little bit on the many challenges that women in a professional life setting and the financial challenges that that entails encounter, and one such challenge is having kids and deciding what you want your family dynamics to look like. And as a result of that, decided to leave the trading world, and since then have successfully started two companies with successful exits in the same space. Interest rate derivatives, trading, consulting, bringing in the new kind of technology and AI and new decision-making protocols into it. Unlike Faraz and Saadia, I actually don't do a ton of personal investing, so everything that I will talk about is going to be at a higher level and from a more overall risk perspective. I manage risk for companies like Google and Microsoft and Yahoo and those guys, so I do the same thing as you would for your personal finances at a corporate level.
Wonderful. My name is Saadia Ahmed. It is wonderful to be back at Open Women Leadership Forum. I was one of the founders team that started this initiative, so it's really nice. It almost feels like coming back home, and I see a lot of familiar faces, so really happy to be back here. So my background is a little similar to Farah. I did my MBA in finance. I worked at Citibank, Pakistan. I was actually the head of the Northern Credit Card Division based out of Islamabad. We were the first credit cards that were introduced in Pakistan. I don't know how many of you remember that, early 90s, the first time that there was a credit card in Pakistan, a lot of learning. I moved to the US, I worked with Bank of America, also working with high net worth clients about financial solutions. And then I took a break for almost 7 years when I had my children. And then when I was looking to get back, I was looking at different options and somehow felt that starting your own business is easy and flexible. So, it wasn't until I was actually into it that realized that when you start your own business, it's a 24/7. You might be on paper flexible, but getting a business basically off the ground takes a lot of effort. And somebody once gave an analogy that it's like flying an airplane, right? It needs a lot of momentum and to get off the ground, but once it cruises, it's much easier. So I've been in financial planning practice, wealth management since 2006. In 2013, my husband left his job at Cisco and actually decided that he wanted to be in the financial services, wealth management industry. So we started working together, and in 2018, we actually founded our own registered investment advisory firm. And it's been an amazing journey. My practice is almost 90% working with women. It's evolved that way over time. It's families or single women, divorced, widows. Somehow there are lots and lots of women who are now head of households, so somehow it has evolved that way. So I'm really excited that Open is talking about this conversation, this topic, because I think it's really, really important for women to get in the arena, to start talking about money, to start talking about what it provides for them. So it's not just money by money, but it's really what it enables you to achieve, and I think that's very close to women's hearts. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Farah and Saadia. So the conference is Ignite. This session is Spark. So whoever thought of the names has done a great job, and the goal is to spark your finances. Let's do a quick show of hands. How many of the women sitting in this room are actively participating in all household financial decisions? Show of hands, please. Excellent, excellent. And how many of you would like to be knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than what you have today on financial services? Awesome, excellent. All right, so with that said, I think let's start with the first question. What are some of the how can women get financial independence in today's environment? And what are some of the challenges that they face in that financial independence?
So I can start. Financial independence, I think the first thing to do is to define what financial independence is, right? At the end of the day, my take on it is it's different things for different people. It doesn't lend itself to a single definition, right? I mean, what I considered financial independence when I was 23 years old is very different from where I was 4 years ago when 2 of my kids were off to college, to where I am now when, I'm thinking, am I ready to retire or not? There are different times in your life when you need different things, when your access to finances is different, when your ability to control certain things is different. So it's an ever-evolving definition of what that is. And it is an ever-evolving definition in terms of each individual's life circumstances. So no two people have the same definition. That said, being able to, and in my mind, a simple definition would be being aware at any given time of what your financial situation is, having a very concrete short-term plan in terms of where you're going in the next kind of couple of years, and then having a long-term plan which aligns with your present situation your short term, and working towards it. And so at any given time, you need to be in the driver's seat and in control. Show up for it, understand that you can control it, understand that you're smart enough to navigate through it, and be in that driver's seat. That's what financial independence is. It isn't about how much money you have in the bank. It isn't about the vehicles that you're investing in. It's all about making life choices which will enable you to meet some of these goals. With that, I'll turn it over to Saadia.
I would add to what Farah has said. So financial independence, financial prosperity, financial wellness, I think these are all terms which are very synonymous with each other, very similar. And what it means basically, as Farah said, is that at any given time, how do you define what these terms mean for you? Because they are going to be different for every person. Because wherever you want to go, you need to know exactly what that picture looks like. And once you define what financial independence or prosperity or wellness means for you, the next is, okay, now that you know what it is, what it makes you feel, how do you get there? And what have you done so far? So you basically chart a pathway or a route that this is my goal, where I want to be. This is where I am right now. What are the steps that I need to take to get from here to there? I think the biggest thing, the biggest challenge that women typically face is that we avoid it. I think that's the biggest challenge and mistake that we do, that we avoid this conversation. Because there are so many studies which have been done that women have, so 9% of only women consider that they are better at investing than men, whereas the returns that women get are actually 0.4% more than what men get, right? But the confidence gap that I am not good enough, or I don't know, or I'm not good at math, which I think we've all said that some point in our life, that kind of holds us back. But once you have a clear understanding of what it is that you want to accomplish, then having, okay, I'll say the B word, budgeting, which is, a lot of us avoid it almost as much as going to the dentist, but think of it that it enables you to get to where you want to be. And I've seen over and over again that when your goals are very clear, when your why is very clear, making small adjustments don't hurt as much because you know what it is that you want to accomplish. So, like Farah said, defining what financial independence means to you. Is it sending your kids to college? Is it retiring at a certain age? Is it maybe just not working full time or taking a break while you're raising your children? It could be different for each and every person in this room. It will be very unique to what you value, what is important to you, and what it is that you want to accomplish in life. So I think defining your why, defining what is important to you, what it means to you, is the first step. The rest all fall in place after you have that squared away, that, okay, this is what I want my life to look like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, what I want for myself, for my family, for my maybe parents, children, and then you start putting a plan in place as to how to get to where you want to be.
So with that said, can we talk a little bit about some of the challenges? I know, Saadia, you touched upon it. Farah and Saadia, can you guys highlight the challenges why women are not feeling comfortable doing these financial management and financial strength for them?
So I think the biggest, like I said, it's avoiding the conversation. It's thinking that we're not able to understand it. So we've talked about the pay gap, the wealth gap. One of the things that there are more and more studies now being done is that pay gap is actually not as bad as the wealth gap. Because wealth means what you're going to be, what your life is going to look like, not just today or tomorrow, but when you stop working. I'm sure you guys will be horrified to learn that almost 70% of women actually live just on Social Security. They tend to live much longer because women just have a longevity. So we need more money, basically, over our lifetime. We also take breaks in our careers, which also interrupts our capacity to earn. Another really important statistic that I would, if you don't take anything else from this panel, I would request you take that. 80% of women will be responsible for their finances sometime in their life. It could be through various events, but it could also be just through widowhood. Now, the other really, so now that I've pulled you all down, let me lift you guys up a little bit. You all have heard about the wealth transfer that's going to happen in the next decade, right? The baby boomers, your parents, your grandparents, as they pass away, all that wealth is going to be basically transferred over, and women will inherit almost 70% of that. So I would encourage all of you to be responsible about your finances. Take that first step, start educating yourself. There's so many resources available now that, there isn't really anything that can hold you back. And trust me, even if you're 40 or you're 50, you don't know what Dow Jones is or S&P 500 is, it's okay. It's okay. Just start. It doesn't matter where you start from. Today is the best day to take that step.
I totally agree with Saadia over here. I think women also have incredibly unique life challenges as well. If you're a man, you have one goal, is to find a good job, provide for your family, and all resources are set towards enabling that. That's not true for women. We are expected to raise families, support our spouses, take care of our parents, do far more than just earn a living. And sometimes earning a living can actually be something that we're told is less important. So again, being able to control that and being in the driver's seat on that type of decision making is important as well. The other thing that I have this conversation with my children, especially my daughter, all the time. When I started working in this industry on the trading floor, the first day that I walked on, I was one of 4 women on the floor. There were 50 people sitting on that trading floor. Of those 4 women, I was the only one who wasn't the admin, right? Back in the day, working from home was not an option. We had physical security on our computers and machines, couldn't be taken home, data couldn't be taken home. There was no concept of part-time work. So when I had my daughter, and I just started this awesome, interesting derivatives desk. I was set to do all these things. And then we had our first child. And I'm very grateful for my husband, who's sitting here today as well, that we had a great discussion around this. Does it make sense for him to scale back or for me to scale back? Those were not conversations necessarily that were happening in every household. A lot of those conversations were around the guy will keep working and the woman will do what was necessary. It so turned out that my daughter decided not to ever take the bottle, and so she would have 1 ounce of milk, and this was something Summer could not do. So I ended up being the one who decided to take some time off. And within about 10 days, realized this wasn't for me, and I had a lot more to do and a lot more to give. And at that time, as I said, there was no work from home, there was no part-time. There were 2 options. Deal with it, build resentment, and forever kind of regret that, could I, should I, this would have happened, that would have happened, or reach out to people. I had a great mentor, and he suggested, reach out to our clients. Reached out to them. I was bringing a certain skill set to the market, and I asked the question, and within 2 weeks, I was back at work on my terms, on my kind of protocols in terms of when I will be at work, when I will be at home, where I will do what, and so on and so forth. So the other part of financial independence is, again, as I said, it's not about where you've invested, how much money you have in the bank. Have you taken control of your career? Have you taken control of your life choices, right? I mean, that's where independence will come in. Are you brave enough to ask the hard questions? What's the worst? Somebody will say no. Not the end of the world. But are you going to ask the question? And so that's where financial independence really comes in, is to own what you want life to look like.
So we talked about what are the financial opportunities that women should consider. We've talked about what are the difficulties women have faced in finances as well. Now let's move towards the rosy part, which is the tools and resources that each one of us can use in empowering our financial resources. So both of these questions, Saadia, you and Farah, what kind of resources and tools do you recommend for women here to make their financial services and financial management a lot better than what it is today?
So I'll start with it because Saadia will add the intelligent part to this. I'll add the emotional part to this. I'm a quant. I understand risk really, really well. Give me a math model, I can break it down and show you everything that it can do. Yet, I don't do my own investing. It's like you get bad blood work results. You go onto Google, search it up, you understand what's going on more or less. You can figure out WebMD is really great at telling you how to treat it, or the Mayo website, yet you go to the doctor. And so I love to tell people, I'd recommend a book to everybody. It's called The Black Swan by Nicholas Talebi. Go to the experts. I understand and I know this really well, but I would go to a Saadia or a Faraz to do this. Get the help. You don't have to understand and know everything. Again, know what your goals are, know what your options are. Do Google it and search it up and know what direction you want to go into. But only you can define really what your financial needs are, but then get the expert help. It is incredibly useful. I've heard lots of arguments from people, but they charge a fee, or there's like trading costs, and why should I pay that? Like, I can use E-Trade. I pick stocks really well. Believe me, I have looked at risk for a really long time. You want diversification, and you want the experts. They will show you tools and investment vehicles that you don't even know exist. So that's what my recommendation would be, but now I let the true experts speak to it.
So I would say, so Farah is right, but every person is really different, and everybody works really differently. So when you're looking for resources, if you're somebody who loves to do research, right? You're online, you like to look at different things. In the last 15 to 20 years, this industry has evolved so much, and there is so many resources available that there is really no reason not to take that step. So if you can educate yourself through online learning, you can also, so the basic things, if you're just starting out, I see a lot of young women in the room. If you're just starting out, just go and do a robo-advisor. Just do somebody that looks at your stuff and gives you some recommendations. At least you have gotten your skin in the game, right? Because one of the challenges that happens, and I think the person before also mentioned that you give $100,000 to a woman, she'll put it in the bank, and the guy will invest it. 4 years later, 10 years later, there's a huge difference, right? The market has been returning about a 10% return if you look for the last 2-3 decades. You're missing out on that. If inflation is at 3%, 9%, your cash is actually losing money, right? Any resource is a good resource if it works for you. And I think most of the people in this room, they understand, because we're on our phones all the time. So there isn't any shortage of resources. It's just that how do you work best? Do you work best by doing it yourself? Do you work best by working with somebody? And whatever works for you, do that. That would be my message. But the thing is that we all know that there's a lot of information about a lot of things. That doesn't mean we take action on those things, right? We all know how to lose weight, how to eat healthy, how to do so many good things that we're supposed to do. But it's not the knowledge, it's really taking action on that knowledge. So I would say, know yourself, you know yourself best. Whatever works for you, do it, but just take action.
So a quick show of hands one more time. How many of you know what is an S&P 500 index? Please raise your hand if you know what is the S&P 500. Wow, quite a few of you. Excellent. So you also should know that the companies in S&P 500 index that have either women leaders, CEO, executives, or majority or a good number of women in the board of these companies, those companies' growth rate have been much higher than not. And second is their balance sheet, their assets and liabilities, they take less debt. Hence, they are more valuable companies and less risky, as Farah would highlight that. The last thing I would piggyback of what Saadia said, and also Nida in the previous session said, that wherever women are involved, it is a better working environment as well. And Farah probably can relate to that on the trading desk. When as your career progressed, as you saw more women in your trading desk, you probably saw the work environment got even better.
Absolutely. I think women work very differently than men do. There's a reason why the structure of women-led organizations, for instance, that Faraz was referring to, exists. First thing is, they're less leveraged or they have less debt because they don't have access to it. If I were to go to a bank, if I were a guy asking for 100,000, I'd probably get 100. I could probably wing 110, 120 as well. If I was a woman asking for 100,000, the amount of questions that I'd be asked in order to get access to it, I'd be lucky if I got 50, right? So it's not by choice that they have to. The reason why they're more risk averse is they have so much more skin in the game, and everybody's kind of waiting for them to not get there in some ways. If you look at entrepreneurs and failure rate, women entrepreneurs fail almost 7 times as much as men entrepreneurs do for that reason. The access to resources just doesn't exist. It's assumed that they are not going to make it. And so they have to be very efficient. They have to be very good at it. I went to a business school, one of the most competitive business schools in Pakistan. And I still remember, and the person who said this to me is a very dear friend, and I still call him out on it. I was in a very high-level finance class, a lot of math. I was one of 2 girls in that class with about 50 boys. And I did really, really well. And one of the guys turned around and told me, well, if you can do it this well, you should have been a guy. Ouch. Right? And we grew up with that mindset. We grew up being told, whether it was, starting at the bank where there were like 3 women and the rest of the floor was all men, whether it was on the trading floor, that you have to prove yourself in order to sit at the table. And that mindset of needing to constantly prove yourself has ingrained in us that you need to do 120% to get to 100, but be okay if it's about an 80. Right? And so that's where the issues are, and that's where kind of the environment that women create is different. Women that I work with, the level at which they work, amazing, right? Like well outside of, they're raising kids, they're doing all of that. Everybody talks about how, women have all these other requirements and needs in life, and so they're not fully present at work. I can guarantee you that there's not a single woman that I worked with who hasn't put in more work than the guy in the same position, in the same job. Lots of guys do it too, not taking away from the guys at all. But the women definitely are fully in there and invested.
And they're more detail-oriented than guys. Guys would overlook a lot of things. My wife is also here, and to piggyback on what Farah and Saadia said, I think the only smartness I've had in life is that I've relied a lot on my wife and to make good decisions. And And meaning I would not make any business decision without talking to her. She's my partner in our marriage as well as in our business as well. I would not make any business decision without talking to my wife. And we have blessed with 3 daughters, so I hope they're getting good knowledge from my wife as well. So now let's talk. We talked about sure.
Can I just add something? So one way that we can combat this, invest.
Yes.
That is one way that we can actually combat this. And the other thing I would say, so last year was, I think in the US, it was a women's economy. It was Barbie, it was Taylor Swift, it was Beyonce. We were expecting a recession. Everybody was sitting on the verge of it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And we had one of the best economies. And it was a women's economy because women, would you believe that Barbie did close to $1 trillion? No, sorry, $1 billion. I talk about trillion so much, sorry about that. So, but imagine, and it was literally, we were watching that movie. My husband came to pick me up. I had walked in. He was like, women were dressed as Barbies. You know, just looking at that scene of how people were involved in that. So when women actually take action, everything changes. And we saw that, you know, the Taylor Swift concerts, the maximum that ever has been done, right? So I think like what Farah said, what Faraz said, you know, whenever women step in and they actually put their skin in the game changes. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, meaning the thing is you guys need to feel absolutely empowered and confident. This century is your century. We are on the back seat, and I am fine being on the back seat. So with that said, we talked about opportunities, tools, resources. We should also talk about, unfortunately, what are some of the common mistakes we make, other than the fact that we don't invest. Other than that, can you highlight a couple of mistakes so the women present here will make sure they don't commit those same mistakes again? Best learning, by the way, is what you learn at other person's cost and not at your cost. You watch the other person make a mistake and you don't make that same mistake. That is the best learning, and your mistakes are going to teach you more than your wins. We all can speak volumes of that.
I think one thing that I have, if there's one sentence that I can say I've heard the most from women is, I wish I had done this earlier. So, you know, and that's what I started with, that don't avoid. Even if you make mistakes, it's okay. It means that you were doing something and you made a mistake and you learned from it. So not doing something, I think, would be the biggest thing. Women also sell themselves short over and over. Especially when I speak to, you know, women who are in their 40s or 50s, there's this sense of shame that we've not done something, that we don't know this, right? And especially if you're in an environment where you don't feel empowered to speak up, and when you speak up, you feel like you're silenced, it becomes, it's a pattern that sets in, right? And that then shows up in your finances, in your financial life. So I would say just take that first step, and whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, just take that step. I'll give you an example. I got a call from a lady that, you know, my state attorney gave me your number, I'm calling you. I am 98 years old, and I've never had a financial advisor. And I'm like, lady, whether you work with me or not, please come. I want to meet you. Because she was like, I feel like I can live another 10 years, and I am ready to explore this. And I was like, wow. You know, I was just so inspired talking to her for 5 minutes that, you know, somebody, and that tells you just what she had built in her life, because that was her attitude. That if I've not tried this, I'm ready to try it now. No worries as to where I am, what I have in my past, what I'm looking. It's all about what you're looking forward to put down for your future.
For me, it boils down to having confidence in yourself, right? Understand what skill you're bringing to the table. The corporate world is for profit. You should be working for profit as well. And to Saadia's point, don't short sell yourself. The difference that I've seen working primarily with men most of my career, the women that I worked with, don't ask. Don't ask for what's due to them. It's not even a question of asking for extra. It's asking what's due to them. When I started working for my first startup, I went part-time. My choice was, I want to work, but I want to work such that I will start working after I drop my kids off in the morning, and I'll be done for the day when it's time to pick them up at 2:33. There was this is pre-COVID, I'm talking about 20 years ago, there was no protocol around that. Anyhow, we were making it up as we went along. Johan, who was our CEO, I worked very closely with, and we negotiated whatever our salary package needed to be. 6 months in, we have our first we were at the cycle at the end of the year, and he goes, Farah, I'm very confused. And mind you, we're all math people. I'm very confused in how to put in your compensation and your bonus into the HR spreadsheet, because you're not working regular hours. And I got really pissed at him. And I was like, what kind of a question is that? What was the work that you wanted out of me? What was that worth to you? Did you get it on time? Was it done to the highest, best quality? What's the percentage there? Why does it matter how many hours I show up in the office during the day? Right? So be confident again, and I have to tell you, I worked part-time my entire career almost, apart from when I started at the bank, and now that my kids are off to college. And the one thing that I'm most proud of, there hasn't been a single time that I've been paid less than a full-time wage. And the reason for that is that I never let anybody tell me that the quality of my work or the work that I was delivering was anything less. Judge my work, compensate me based on that. And that's where I think we lose a lot of women. A question that oftentimes when you're having these conversations that gets asked is, what can I be doing more in order for me to get my due? Wrong question. You should never be doing more. You should be doing what is required of your job, and you should be confident enough to go ask for it. If that question is arising, that is fundamentally wrong. The problem with us is that we, even as women, have been conditioned to think that way. We respond to that question. Oh, maybe I should maybe I should do. No. If you're delivering 100%, you should earn 100%. There is no reason for you not to. So again, own what you bring to the table. Be confident in your skills. Be confident in your talent. You are providing a service. You need to be compensated for that fairly. Do not hesitate to ask for that. Do not hesitate to go in and ask for a promotion. Do not hesitate to push back when, the reviewer is giving you whatever, because that's the easiest thing. They've copy and pasted out of yesterday's template. Don't do it. That's what needs to really happen in society for women to actually have the same seats at the table as the men do.
The one thing I would add to both Saadia and Farah is that pay the first 10% of your paycheck to yourself. Put it in your investment, put it in your saving. Do not, oftentimes what mistakes we do is we invest after we've invested, after we spent all the money and whatever is left, we say, okay, let me invest this. Wrong way. Pay the 10% first to yourself, then spend it, and you will be shocked how that money over the course of decades is going to grow. I was given 5-minute warning, last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Are there any audience questions? We'd love to answer any of your, yes.
Do we want to pass one of the mics?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Magdi Hussein. I am specialized in organization design. Chairman of the Leadership Development Institute. Family is an organization.
Yep.
Smart woman does not fight the steering wheel. Smart woman steer the man on the steering wheel. That's you have to keep in mind. Independence finance is a two-way street. You have to understand a woman, a wealthy woman like Ummina Khadija radiallahu anha. She was a wealthy woman, very independent, right? But she's a contributor. So I just wanted to clear my understanding of your message. Your message is not to have your own bank account, and the man cannot have his own bank account. If you like to have your own, he should have his own. This is when the fight starts. You are feminist, thank you very much. I'm not against you, but there is no fight between a man and a woman. To empower women must come in a friendly environment and message, and I feel like I'm trying to emphasize on that. I trust you, by the way.
Thank you for that message. And of course, it's a joint effort. Marriage is not between just one person or one sex. It's a joint effort. Last couple of minutes left. I think it's very, very important for everyone to kind of have a better understanding of what is inflation, what is interest rate, and how does interest rate impact our life. We are often shocked how interest rate impacts our life, and it is a very, very important topic. Farah, I know you were great at it. If you don't mind taking a few minutes explaining that.
Sure, absolutely. It's my bread and butter, so unfortunately I can talk about it for hours, so somebody will have to stop me. Interest rates defines everything in terms of your financial well-being, right? Everybody needs money. We all borrow to buy our house. We get leases to get our cars. Our kids borrow to go to school. We all have credit cards. Similarly, all the corporations do the same. They will invest their cash and they will borrow money in order to run their businesses. And so at the end of the day, what does that mean? It means that your cost of doing business, your cost of living, everything is defined and based on interest rates. What's inflation? Inflation is how expensive things are. So between the cost of doing business, the cost of producing goods, that defines what the price of things is. So if interest rates are higher, price of things is more expensive. And so inflation is higher, and it's a vicious cycle. So all of you who read any of the newspapers, it's no longer even in financial news. This is mainstream news now. Everybody reads about the Fed and Governor Powell and all these things and how rates are hiking up, rates are coming down, we're selling treasuries, we're buying treasuries, and all that great stuff. That's what they're trying to do. Inflation is high, they're trying to bring it down. So if the rates are higher, demand supply gets impacted. I need many, many minutes to explain this, but it's all interconnected. It's a web, and the interest rates define a lot of it. There's a chart up here which talks about interest rates and what they've looked like. So when I started my career, we were in the 18%, 20% time frame. Interest rates came down some after that. We used to make fun of our old bosses who would keep reminding us about stagflation and high unemployment and high rates. We'll never see that world again. Rates climbed up again, 02, 03, financial kind of crises were happening at that time, and then you hit the 07, 08 sweet spot where markets completely lost it, credit defaults, you name it, it happened. Markets needed to be boosted, and so what does the Fed do? It reduces interest rate because the cost of doing business becomes cheaper, there's a lot of free money, and so industry invests, industry grows, economy grows, more jobs, and so overall a better environment. Now we've stayed in that low interest rate environment for a really long time. which for somebody like me who has been trading in and out of interest rates was an unrealistic kind of level of interest rates. So anybody over here, and I am looking at some people, who thinks that interest rates are going to go back down to sub 2%, it is not going to happen. And so we are now in that new environment where inflation is high, unemployment is out of control, so the Fed is stepping in, cooling down the economy by making rates go up higher so that business activity slows down a little bit. Unfortunately, it is not working out. And I'd like to flip to the next chart. The reason why it's not working out is that the economic theory that we all kind of grew up with has been thrown out of the window. The world is so much larger. With globalization, the access to resources, to markets, to selling, to buying, everything has completely changed. There are so many interdependencies and correlations, and I love it because, again, that's what I do. I look at all the risk and I do the math and bring 500 different things together and all that great stuff. The Fed doesn't know what's happening. So if you read what the market is talking about or why there's so much uncertainty and anxiety in the market, why the stock market goes up one day and then you hear that there's Fed meeting notes coming out and it tanks like 2,000 points all of a sudden and then it's back up again, that's what's happening. Nobody knows. Everything that they've thrown at it is not working. Everybody's confused. They're trying different things, and unfortunately, interest rates impact everything. And so I love this chart. When I started in investment banking, we did have computers. I'm not that old, but we used to have to create this by hand, and it used to take us days. And now it takes all of 5 seconds to do. What the chart is showing is the blue line actually shows you level of interest rates. Right? The red line shows you at any given point in time in the market, there is a prediction of what rates will look like in the future. So I think this rate in 20 days will look like that. How many times has that actually happened? Right? So I love this hairy chart. I meet with all these CFOs and stuff, and they're all like, we know what we're doing. And I'm like, I've been doing this years, man. I don't know what I'm doing. So this is what life is like, right? We talk about interest rates. We talk about all of this. This is when you are talking to Saadia, when you are talking to Faraz, when you're trying to understand what to do with your portfolio. Getting the 10% return is fantastic, right? My Tesla stock went up. Fantastic. I got like X amount of return on it. What happens when you don't make that node? What will the market do? Are you immunized against that? Can you withstand the risk? Can you withstand the black swan events? That's what you need to focus on. It's not just about investing and making money and earning. It's about preserving it, maintaining your risk, understanding what your risks are. We all have a risk appetite and a risk profile which changes over time. So that's where like financial planning and the Monte Carlo models and all that great stuff that these guys run, which math person, but I tell you, how they do it, I don't know. But that's what it's about. I as a person, I'm perfectly fine earning 15% instead of 20% if when 07, 08 happened, I was at a plus 1%. Whereas everybody else around me was at a negative 20.
So can I add something? So it's the sequence of return is extremely important. But when you're investing, always remember that 07, 08 was followed by a decade of the best S&P 500 performance, right? And people who got out of the market actually were the ones who never made up. I think I had like one client who said, take me to bonds, and that's one person who never recovered. So managing your risk, it's very important what Farah has said, that you invest according to your risk tolerance. But at the same time, I'll give you an example. I got a call from a client on October 30th last year. You would remember the market had come down about 10%, and he was like, Saadia, should we get out of the market? And I was like, let's talk. It was Friday. I said, let's talk on Monday. And I was like, this is the best time to get in the market.
Yep.
Why would we even think about it? And if you look at the performance, the next 5 months was the Santa Claus rally that never went away. Bonds were up, stocks were up. This year, the bonds have come down because interest rate expectations have come down. But what followed from that October 30th was a November, December, January, February, March of almost 20% return. Right? So managing your fear when you're investing is extremely important. And that's why your behavior makes a huge difference. And when they were asking about the resources and tools and the mistakes, that's the biggest mistake people do in the stock market. They buy when it's high and they sell when it's low. Exactly opposite to what you would do when there's a sale. You go in and buy. When it's expensive, you sell, right? Because you want to make profit. So I think women get more fearful than men. And in that situation, I think before you start investing, understanding what you're investing in. That's one thing that I would say, if you're in S&P 500, find out what you're invested in. Because when you look at the list of the companies and you'll be like, okay, I use the iPhone, if Apple is down, it's okay. I'm not invested in something which is going to go poof. I'm invested in a company. So the more you educate yourself about what are your holdings, what are you actually putting your money in, it will keep you from making mistakes that are fatal. Because you lose the best 10 days in the market, which usually follow with the worst span in the market, and your ability to make up for that loss almost is negligible.
So in closing, I think let's take 10 seconds and say one thing women should do with regards to their finance and investment. Just one thing. If one thing you want them to remember, do this going forward. What is that, Saadia?
So I would piggyback on what Faraz said, to pay yourself first. And that's what Warren Buffett says, pay yourself first. 10%, maximize your 401k, make sure at least you're not leaving on the table the company match, but then make a goal to maximize your 401k, start investing.
Farah?
I'd say elbow your way to the seat at the table.
You what, sorry?
Elbow your way to the seat at the table.
Right.
You deserve it.
Yes.
You are smarter than everybody else. You are hardworking. You deserve it. Go for it.
Okay. With that said, how about a huge round of applause for Saadia and Farah? Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to us.